Hi, my name is Josh Romero. I'm one of the maintainers of OpenSearch dashboards and some other repositories in the OpenSearch open source project. And today we're doing office hours at a slightly different time to try and better accommodate time zones. We do record these. These will go on our YouTube channel. So I will just be have the recording going. This is just so other people can learn and share and that can't make these times can participate with us. So with that being said, I think we can go ahead and get started. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of let us know what you want to talk about today.
Hi, so my name is Lionel, I'm a software engineer, and I work on a lot of projects per year, around like 5 to 6 a year, and each time I work on a project that involve OpenSearch, I actually like some requests from the customers to if they can do some things with it. And sometimes it's like map related, and I see that now there's integration with maps. But most recently, what we got on the last 3 out of 4 projects was that they wanted to have a simple search. So like the feeling is that the customers are getting a bit more literate in general with the data. They know that they have data and they would like to access it. And the problem we have with OpenSearch query is that it is quite complex to actually formulate a query in general to using the APIs. So this concern is like once you are working outside the dashboard, and the experience that we kind of want is it is really what they have during the dashboard experience. So they're like, oh, okay, in the dashboard I can do all this query, and I would like to do the same thing, and it is not possible at the moment. So the problem is not possible. It's like you do have query string, but query string it's not too much documented, and there is like a subset supported of what DQL do right now. DQL being the language for the dashboard query language. Digging a bit into the code, I find out that the DQL is actually like a custom implementation using query in the JavaScript. So the goal here is to try to get it to make it available to everyone and not only to a dashboard. Focus on
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really helpful context. So one of the things I think you just covered that I was curious about is from most of the users or customers that have asked for this, they're already familiar with like the dashboard experience and using DQL there. Because one of the other questions I always wonder about is like even the DQL grammar, is it really like documented and approachable enough for people to like get used? So I think that's useful feedback for us to hear that like users do actually want more of that, or they want that elsewhere.
Like the documentation for DQL is much more complete than it is for query string. And there is a lot of documentation for the normal query, like you see the JSON one below, but you have to go through a lot of page to actually understand what you need to do. And yeah, I feel it's like the documentation is a big part of it, but it's like the language is simple enough as well to make it accessible. That's like the good part.
So one of the things I think you mentioned in here is we could just kind of find a way to export separately the parser that exists in dashboards today. If we were kind of like spitballing how that might look, is that something that you would want to have accessible through like the OpenSearch JS client? Is that like when you're doing these other integrations on other pages or sites, how are you generally building your integrations with OpenSearch? Is it through the JS client or other means?
Not really. It's like it is often a custom implementation. The problem you have is that you need to have some access controls. So we do have to make like a middleware between the thing. But basically, it's like you try to forward the query, and if you try to allow like the full syntax of OpenSearch, it become a bit more complicated to manage. So that's like the simplest is in general the better. So it's just like an input, and you do have some controlled fields like the dates, for example, or things like that. But it's like it does like they do require like this to be like more accessible. Like the problem is like if you hard code like let's say selectors and field form in your page, then if they want to add something else, it's become complicated. That's why it's like there is a sentiment that they want to move towards having access to just an input to do a query itself. So to answer your question, it's like we do not use the client, JS client, but if we were access to a library to do a parsing, we will probably either use it in the backend or use it in the front end, but probably most likely in the backend, actually.
So one potential solution would be we just extract out the dashboard code into a library component that you can just import. That way, you're doing the translation and parsing from the DQL input to an actual OpenSearch JSON query that then, however you make that query, will work fine, right? But the idea is that you would still do that in JavaScript. I also know on the issue, I think you also discussed like I'm just trying to make sure we understand like what would be the most helpful thing. Like, would it be better to, I think doing that, like exporting this as a library where you can run this parser locally, in your JavaScript project. That seems relatively easy to achieve. But also, if it would be more helpful to, let's say, have like have that parser implemented in Java or somewhere else in your architecture, I think understanding that would also be helpful in terms of like knowing the trade-offs between like, is it the JavaScript library enough, or would it be more helpful to have that parser implemented elsewhere? Does that make sense? Like that, I think that's like one question I have. Because the other thing I will throw out there that I could imagine is it would also be possible to expose, I think, the parser that exists in dashboards today as a OpenSearch dashboards API. But that feels less desirable because then you're introducing more latency and yet another service you have to talk to. So I don't know kind of how you see like the ideal architecture for what you're trying to do.
So there's like one of the main issue you have in modern development is maintainability, because as you aware, the NPM package it evolves all the time, and maintaining them is a bit of a nightmare for long-term project. So short-term, does this address? Yes, it's like we will be able to use it, but then it is it is a quick win. Basically, it's like it's a short-term decision. It works, and you do it like you just install a package and then you can use it. But then it's like you you make a new feature available in the package. So someone has to update the package and integrate and redeploy, etc. While if it was living inside OpenSearch itself, it will be probably easier and more widely available. And for I think the win for the OpenSearch team is that you can provide more and more features with your DSL over time, and it just come with a version of OpenSearch itself. So it is one thing less to manage. Second part is that we're speaking about a JavaScript library, but that works fine until someone uses another language, right? So it's like if we use Java to query, or if you use Python for a backend side, you won't be able to use it anymore. So it's like there's more. It's more available if it was directly as query string will be like query DSL, and you provide the query there. and it will be like available for everyone. But it is, I recognize it is much more effort than just exporting the client.
I have a question. Have you tried using the PPL plugin, the OpenSearch Observability plugin with PPL support? Because that is a complete backend interface. It has its own parser, and it actually gives you, I have not played too much with this, but it actually gives you a response, especially for aggregated stuff, in a very tabular format, which is what most front ends are used to also.
No,
and
we didn't try to use the PPL. Yeah.
The reason I mentioned that is also because DQL actually is just when we forked Kibana from Kibana and made OpenSearch dashboards. It's also basically KQL was just copied over. So if you look at the code, actually, it still refers it as KQuery. It's not really dashboard specific as a language, but PPL was built from the ground up as a new thing for dashboards. So we have a lot more like SMEs who know how to use that, and then it's also baked in better with the backend. I think it has first-hand support on the backend, although you do need to install a plugin to use it. But once you do, you don't need to have any front end to query using PPL. And our documentation is, compared to DQL, more better for PPL right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The syntax is a bit more complicated. It is more SQL-like query.
Yeah.
So we had the option to use SQL, but it's like then the SQL is like, it's not really natural language and you have to learn it. And it does feel a bit similar here. The DQL seems a bit simpler, but like it is in the middle, I guess.
The reason I propose this is mostly just because I don't know what the team's intention with DQL going forward is, especially since we also have the competing PPL work that's going on effort there. So moving it to core would be something that it'd be part of the API going forward there. Right now, because DQL is a separate part of the application, we can change fundamental parts of the queries, internal workings, and really wouldn't affect anybody. But the second we add it to core, it has to be performant. It has to meet all the expectations that a language parser needs to support. And like, it's a much bigger lift, especially if you're not really sure of what DQL's future goal is, at least as far as dashboards concerned.
Yeah, like I said, I do recognize that it is like including it into to OpenSearch like API is much more an effort. Exporting the library is like after it's a JavaScript law world, so breaking change is something that happens often. It's just it's not
different expectations in our NPM world.
Exactly.
But beyond the SQL nature of PPL, but does it solve your problem though? Like, I'm trying to understand if, like, for your specific use case, is that a good enough solution right now, or it really needs something as simple as DQL to really work?
It is, like I said, like the PPL will, it is kind of like I would have used the SQL plugin then, as it is wider non-language than PPL. Like if we wanted to, but it's like it is, like I said, it is a bit of a learning curve. Like here, I see there's some dedup, and like you have to specify source piping. So it kind of fit, but it's like the need is more to have something simple to use. If you have to spend like a week to learn the language to finally use your dashboard, it is a bit against the interest. But sorry, the DQL, I like it so much because it is like you don't have so much to learn. It is the syntax is really, really simple.
If we did move forward with pulling the DQL parser out as a standalone package or library, it occurs to me that also probably you'd want the similar sort of, well, actually, Rocky, I should correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't even have the like type ahead autocomplete implemented in our DQL input in dashboards, right?
We don't. That's
yeah.
actually
So
another reason I was
that's
suggesting
actually another.
PPL.
Yeah, I mean that's like another thing that I would feel like for your use case where you have an input, like part of the goal of a simple query language is it should be discoverable, and I feel like that's something that we're really missing even on the dashboard side right now is just kind of all the type ahead and auto completion for the syntax. But um,
Yeah, you would probably require to get like the knowledge of the structure of the document. So it's like basically like putting the indices and just say like, oh, okay, this is the fields, and when you start typing, it just kind of autocomplete.
yeah,
But it's like it was not really necessary. I would be great, but I admit it. But it is much more much more work, I guess. Right now, like the dashboard only support history and save
yeah,
query,
yeah.
and it's just kind of do the job on the.
It actually has all the architecture in there to support other things. I think it just got either removed or broken in the fork and migration because I was just changing some things in there the other day and I realized we only have the history, but I think some of that stuff could be re-enabled.
One of the selling point too, like to exporting the library, because right now, like we don't have it, and then if you update it and add the support, it's like here you go, available for everyone. That's quite good.
Are you interested in helping export this library and pull it out? Because I mean, one of the things we're always interested in is like other contributors to help, especially if you have the domain knowledge that's useful here of what we do. Because I think, like, I would say that at least exporting this, pulling it out of, kind of like a inlined thing in dashboards and making it a separate package or library is kind of straightforward. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Like I can do that. Just what I was wondering is how does that work with OpenSearch team? Because like I would have to create a repository under your domain.
We can help with the repository creation and the administrative stuff of making sure even with some of the like publishing, if we were publishing to npm, we can help with that administrative thing. It's more just in terms of doing some of the dev work to separate it.
Yeah. In this case, it's like, well, I have limited time, I will be honest, but I can try to find sometimes every week to try to do it little by little and get it to deploy. Yep.
Cool. I think that would be an awesome place to start, and we can definitely support you. It's just I think that's usually the quickest way for something to kind of make it in is if people like at least kind of get the ball rolling with contributions, because then it shows that there's like a real need, and then we always have time to kind of like help shepherd those projects through more than like if it's something where our team has to do all the work, then it has to kind of get prioritized with everything else as well. So I mean, Rocky, Ashwin, what are your thoughts on? I mean, I'm kind of leaning toward just moving forward with that as a short-term thing. I know Ashwin, you're concerned about long-term support for DQL, but I don't know. I think there's this conversation brings up kind of like some of the benefits and use cases that we don't necessarily have from some of the other query languages.
Yeah, my personal concern is, like I said, it's about long-term support. Like one of the advantages of having it inside dashboards inlined is that if you want to make a quick fix or something, it's very trivial, right? It's in the same code base, it's tested, it works. So second you move it out, you have to make a change there. Same problem you have OUI today. You can make a change in OUI, there's a release there first, and then be consumed inside dashboards. So we have that extra friction, and that's kind of why I wanted to make sure that if there's a long-term plan to improve DQL, is when I wanted to take that effort to kind of move it out. And if that's not really the case, then I would try to find a solution that keeps it in dashboard but meets the requirements that we are facing right now. Which is why I was like, if PPL solved it, that immediately it requires nothing from our end. Like that's already something you can use starting today and works out of the box. The other way I can think of doing this is by moving into the packages section within the dashboard repo itself, so you don't have to make a new repo for it. So packages can be consumed by, like, if what you're doing is building a plugin on top of dashboards, that's a fairly simple way to just extend the functionality and use SQL in multiple places rather than just the top query bar. But if you're trying to make a product that's not in any way tied to dashboards, is when you need an npm plugin or an npm package, or you need a separate repo to do this. So, and that's a much bigger lift, in my opinion, than just either a package or using PPO. So there's some trying to understand like how big of how important is it to move it out, and is the cost benefit like worth it?
Yeah, I feel it's a discussion you have to have between
Yeah.
you guys.
No, that's kind of where we need to like know from people like you to like tell us like, hey, because internally, like we are working with dashboards every day, so we don't really feel the pain of not having access to DQ outside of dashboards, right? So it's the community that can just come back and tell us like, hey, no, we really need this, right? So for example, if you have a lot of reactions to this conversation or this issue saying, hey, DQ being split out from dashboards so they can use more places, gives us a hint saying, okay, the community really seems to want this, right? And it seems to be important enough. So maybe you should like figure out how to do that. But if it's just one person who has a very obscure use case, then we probably won't prioritize as much as like something else that has a lot more people who really need this to work. So right now you've come to us with such like definitely a use case, which is why I first suggested PPL, but if that absolutely does not work, and this is something the community really wants, I don't see any reason why we should not pull it out.
Do you have some sort of a roadmap, or like where you have features and people can vote on it?
Right now, roadmaps are all basically based on issues on GitHub. So if it's on the GitHub issue, we usually put the most highest ones we want traction on as pinned issues on top. So those are the ones we want like feedback on. But almost any issue in there, like if we see enough traction of people saying, hey, what's happening here? What's that? Or what's the status of this? We usually start prioritizing that.
Okay, but let me know your decision when you once you
Yeah.
this yeah.
I kind of
So,
have
so
like,
just to,
go ahead.
sorry, Rocky, go ahead.
I was gonna throw a wrench in it. So if you want to recap a little bit, you can do that first, and I'll throw a wrench a little bit.
No, go. I want to hear the wrench.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned was like dumping like some of the APIs into OpenSearch. So like I pasted this like link in the chat. So like we have quote unquote like system index Kibana, which is where we store all our saved objects. The OpenSearch team and like the OpenSearch like project itself like wants to have like cohesion on stuff, and they created this issue with like you can't call yourself a system index with the dot notation if it's not actually within like extending like the system index plugin within OpenSearch. So like the kind of like too long to read, explain like I'm five. Like it's like basically this OpenSearch issue or OpenSearch team is like kind of like either telling us they were either system index, so basically put more APIs into OpenSearch from OpenSearch dashboards, which kind of lets them monitor that, and then or lets them control that, and then but that also like causes like headaches for us too. So it's like I don't know. I was meaning to like get back to like probably like some people in the OpenSearch repo, but basically I just remember like when you said like if they DQL like be like existing within OpenSearch, like the OpenSearch team is telling us to like use system indexes by extending within OpenSearch. So I'm not sure if there's like a case to also like discuss about like maybe I'll make a proposal or like talk about it. Like, do we want to include some APIs within OpenSearch from OpenSearch dashboards?
That's a good call out. Okay, I didn't know that they were inclined on moving stuff from dashboards to core. If they're inclined to do that, then we should definitely actually open this conversation up on OpenSearch core and say, hey, do you think it's worthy to move DQL from dashboards to core? And then if we have support from that team, then sure, we should definitely do that. And that seems to be the most ideal approach over here as well, right?
Also, I'm wondering now that you brought that up, is another option here a new OpenSearch plugin that just has some implementation of this grammar and parser of DQL? That so if you have that plugin installed, and you send it DQL queries, it can do that parsing.
I wouldn't make that a plugin. But then the main reason is just because if they install a minimal distribution of dashboards and core, everything needs to work. And if this depends on a plugin that needs to be installed for it to first work, then that kind of breaks that paradigm. That's the only reason.
No, I'm saying it would be an optional plugin if in a use case like this, where it's like you have a customer that that wants a DQL input, so then they install the DQL OpenSearch plugin, and then now they're allowed to just make those simple queries directly to OpenSearch instead of having to go through, relying on OpenSearch dashboards to do the parsing.
Oh yeah, that's definitely possible.
I'm not like a expert on OpenSearch, but is it the same effort as like having it? Like, is it behind you have to do it using Java and like the backend that is existing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that we'd have to re-implement the
Convert it.
parser in Java, yeah, if we did it that way.
It should not be too much of a problem, just
Yeah.
to know the effort behind needed.
I think this conversation needs to happen on the OpenSearch core project issues anyways. I think we've come to a point where I think we all agree that this one of the best options here is to move parser to core. The question is, do you want to keep a plugin that's optional, or do we want to make it in part of the main core itself, or something else?
Yeah, so let's I think the follow-up is we will in this initial GitHub issue you had, well, I think I can, Ashwin, do you actually mind putting just the summary of like all the options we discussed in the issue as a follow-up?
In this one, or do you want me to open the one on OpenSearch?
In 94, 98.
Oh, this is already in OpenSearch. Okay,
yeah,
never mind.
It's already in the OpenSearch.
Okay, yeah.
Because basically they asked for kind of like the dashboard team's perspective, and I think like there's lots of different ways we can solve this, but I think that amongst us in a call, we think that the long-term solution is better, to be to kind of free it from just being a dashboards thing. So I think that's the next step. We can put the feedback there. We can see what folks on the OpenSearch core think of those options, and then we can like maybe pick one to move forward with. Because yeah, I think I agree that like we could always do something like really quick that it's in the parts of the system that we understand and control, but that might not be best. So I do think like and it will also start that conversation of long-term support for DQL in the right places too, because I think even to your point, Ashwin, that's an interesting question for like a larger group than those of us here. So we'll go ahead and add that. So I would say we can just kind of continue the discussion there, and if we get some more input from other folks that we want to do another meeting, I can always schedule another meeting. But for now, I think that's the next place to like continue the discussion. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll put a summary of what we discussed here with my thoughts on that. And if you guys have any comments, drop it after that.
Cool. All right. Is it Lino? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Lino. Did we at least cover kind of the things that you wanted to cover here? Was there anything else that we should talk about before we drop?
No. Just thank you for organizing the meeting and this different hours. I know Sydney is not time zone friendly for anyone.
No. I thank you for also being patient and figuring out time to meet. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll continue the discussion on the GitHub issue. We'll find, I think, a way forward. But again, thanks for bringing the use case, because it's also really important for us to like hear even that people find DQL useful is actually really useful feedback. So thanks for bringing it to us, and hopefully we'll be able to find a way to move it forward.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.